Me. Hi. There you go.
Little technical snafu there, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, good morning. It's Phil Wade from Dalton Wade Real Estate Group, and joined with Clarence, drinking the pumpkin on what is it? The maple
pecan latte.
Starbucks. She gives it a big thumbs up. And Lisa
Again.
holding the phone again. And Phil. Today we're going to talk about buyer agent agreement. A lot of the trainings come out of things that happened during the previous week. This past week we had a couple situations where a couple agents, two different agents, were working with buyers for an extended period of time, and then the buyers, put an offer in with somebody else. And it kind of always gives rise to, okay, do you actually need, a formal buyer agent agreement with them? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what happened, one, the person had been showing them the condo for the properties for probably about 6 weeks, and then, was having difficulty finding them something, mentioned kind of new construction. I guess the buyer then went and talked to their parents or one of their parents, and then lo and behold, the dad's real estate agent ends up putting the offer in on the new construction. So, and then in the other case, the agent was out of town. The buyer, had gone to an open house, really liked the property, and the agent, not the listing agent, but there was somebody doing the open house for the listing agent, put a contract in for that. That one seems like it's going to fall through, so she'll keep that buyer. But so what are the pros or the benefits of using a buyer's agent agreement? So basically, it protects your time. So in those two cases, those two agents spent significant amount of time with their buyer, and then lo and behold, their buyer kind of went around them. And I think in both cases, there was no like malice or misintent. They just really didn't know better type of thing. But I mean, there's always that risk. So you're and we've all worked with them. That buyer wants that property right now. They're like, they got to have it. They're focused. And if for some reason you're not around, they may go find some other agent. The other thing it protects is kind of that last minute switch, which actually happened in both of these cases. So, again, something came up that then made, something happen, and them use, another agent. So again, you would be potentially protected with a buyer's agreement. And then the last thing it does is it kind of, shows commitment, right? Each party is committed to each other, and that commitment can be helpful, and kind of potentially can avoid, the two situations we just talked about. So those are the benefits. What are the cons or the disadvantages? The big disadvantage is it's a turnoff potentially. It can be you're just meeting that person. You may have worked with them once or twice, and now you're asking them. It's kind of like dating. Maybe you go on a couple dates, and next thing the other person, let's get married. So it's kind of like so it can be too much. It's a turnoff, and they may say no. Then what do you do? Then it puts it all in kind of an uncomfortable place. It kind of shows maybe a lack of trust. Potentially as well. Here's somebody that I don't really know all that well yet, and they're asking me to sign this and commit to that. So that kind of trust factor, like why are you doing that, would come into play. And then the last thing is that they can be difficult to enforce. So in the end, if that buyer does go around you, even though you have the buyer's agent agreement, you still then have to collect your commission, you still have to enforce it, and that can take effort, time, and sometimes may not happen. But so that's kind of the pluses and the minuses. And then, it's at Dalton Wade, I kind of leave it up to the agents. If they want to have one, they can. If they don't, they don't. What's your thoughts, Clarence?
I've never done it yet. I think that it's a good idea, but probably not on the very first meet. Probably after you've taken them out, like two, and then the third time maybe do it. I don't know. I feel like it might make some people uncomfortable, so I understand that. But a lot of other bigger companies do that all the time. That's like standard, so I don't think we should feel afraid of asking for that.
Lisa, what do you think?
I've never done it either. I tend to agree that a lot of people do it. A few people have asked me why I'm not doing it. Like they're ready to sign something, I think, but in general, that's just a few. In general, I'm more comfortable not doing it and just having somebody. I tell them I want you to work with me because you want to work with me. And yes, I've lost a few people along the way, but mostly the people that I'm thinking of specifically, it was because they weren't the actual buyer of the property. Their, brother was buying the property for them, or someone else was actually funding it, which means they weren't the buyer that I would have been signing the contract for. So, that's more be wary if you're working with someone who isn't actually the buyer.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts and my experience, again, I think it is it's very much an individual thing, and I think, it's sort of, what do you do? And here's how I've always thought about it. It's, and I've lost some clients, that have gone around me that I've worked with. I can think of two, yeah, I mean, it happens. But I think, the other side of it is if you're asking people to sign it, right, you can lose people there as well, because they'll tell you, no, I'm not doing that. And then it sort of puts the whole relationship at, it kind of terminates probably the relationship. So it's really whatever you kind of feel best with. I do think there is, if you're not going to use it, right, if and I think, Claren doesn't use it, Lisa doesn't use it, I don't use it. So if you're not going to use it, what you need to do is you need to be very, very explicit with your client in terms of like, okay, how, we have the buyer disclosure, right? And that talks about like, oh, we're a transaction broker. So it kind of tells them that. It doesn't really tell them like, okay, how do we get paid? What are we really doing here? You're not paying, but we are investing our time in you. And I think if you have that conversation with the buyer early on, you're less likely for them, to not use you. So that they know that you're not getting paid. You're putting your time in up front. And I think in both of these situations, where the potential problem came up, the buyers didn't really know kind of what the relationship was with the agent, and didn't really understand, like, okay, I've just spent all this time and now you've kind of cut me out. I don't think either of them really got that. So you want to have that conversation, and again, it can be tied in with, why somebody needs a buyer's agent, right? A lot of times, like one of the ones I remember losing, she dealt with the listing agent directly. And after that I started to kind of weave in, the conversation, like why you don't want to use a listing agent as opposed to a buyer's agent. So I think, if you're not going to use it, you want to have that very explicit, frank conversation, so that, your client knows that, you're there for them. And again, a lot of it comes down to sort of, your customer service level. Sometimes we'll hear, people are unhappy with, if you're giving somebody bad service, which hopefully never happens, then yeah, they probably should go somewhere else. But if you're giving them good service, you're on top of things, and you've had that conversation with them, I think you'll lose very, very few people that way. And again, I think a lot of times, and this is kind of be the last point, if you're away, right, you want to, and that, that request, like I know Claren's good, like she'll be away and she'll say, oh, can you cover for me if somebody, wants to see something. Because what happens is if you're away and they want to see something and they really want to see it and you're not there, they'll find somebody else and you can lose them like that. So you want to make sure if you're going to be not available, you've made sure to sort of have somebody, either another teammate, me, Lisa, Claren, whoever, we're all here to help, take over and make sure that situation doesn't happen. So any questions in Facebook land? Lisa, Claren, any questions, thoughts? Do you think you'll use it, or you'll stick to kind of doing what you're doing, or?
I think I'll judge it based on the client.
Yeah, kind
of get a feel for them.
Go person by person. Lisa?
I think I'll probably continue to not use it because it's worked for me for so long. But I like, I might use the Dalton Wade buyer acknowledgement, present that to them as a package is my thought to present a whole package and educate people. You know, not just give them that, but the lead-based paint, the energy efficiency, when I first meet them, and ask
Right.
if they have any questions the next time, and sort of start to build into the conversation of, you know,
Right.
we're working together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea in terms of weaving it in with kind of the buyer acknowledgement. So it kind of, even though it, you know, that's not a contract, that's a disclosure, you know. But again, if you're going to try to get them to sign something, that's probably the time to do it. You know, they at least isn't cool, because it's not. You know, again, if they want to see something and you can't show them, and they really want to see it, then you can. It's kind of understandable. But you know, if somebody just, you know, and again, you'll find people, they're working with multiple agents. You know, that's something that, you know, if you have that, it certainly is best. So anyways, so that's today's topic. Clarence, thank you. Lisa, thank you. All right, we'll catch you next week, and have a great weekend.